welcome to this press conference with the Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. First, we will have short introductions, and then we will open up for questions. And with that, I give the floor to the Prime Minister of Norway, Jonas Gahr Støre.
Well, let me wish you heartily welcome to the High North. The temperature is not a particularly cold response, but we are very motivated to be here and meet with our troops. Let me welcome my two colleagues. Chancellor Merz and I have been together at Andøya today, a very fruitful visit. And to our Canadian colleague who has made the long tour from Canada. Soyez le bienvenu, Marc, ici à Norvège. C'est un grand plaisir. We are together, and let me just again thank all the troops, the young men and women who are doing this unique experience of training together, which is basically what NATO is all about. I'd like to salute Canada and Germany for being such close partners, being such like-minded countries, aware of what we have to do at this moment in time. We live in a very critical moment where we need to really come together as an alliance, and we need to come together when we share values and take common responsibility. And we really owe it to these young men and women to deliver politically what is required to have a safe defense, to protect ourselves against war. We see the terrible effects of war, fifth year in Ukraine, and we see war again in the Middle East, and it's our responsibility really to protect ourselves from that. Norwegian security, let me just say briefly, rests on three legs. Our own armed forces. We are now revamping all branches of our armed forces in the coming years. The collective defense through NATO, and strong bilateral ties with allies. And now we are strengthening all of these three dimensions. And I'm particularly happy that we can do this now in the Arctic, because for Norway, the Arctic has been the focus of our national security for decades, and in particular for the last 20 years. We want to preserve what we call high north, low tension. We want to be predictable long term, and that's why this exercise coming every second year is an important thing that everybody around us know, and they know that we exercise to be at the right level. And let me just finish by saying that this is not only about Norwegian security. If we take care of the Arctic in a responsible way, we serve Europe, we serve North America, we serve the purpose of the transatlantic relationship. So we are demonstrating here credible defense and credible deterrence together. So again, to my colleagues on my sides here, very happy to have you here. This is real friendship, this is real solidarity among states, and I'm looking forward to hear your interventions here. Chancellor.
Yeah, thank you, Jonas, and thank you, Mark, for being with us today together here in Norway, defending this part of the European continent. And I'm very happy to be here together with my colleagues and meanwhile friends to show that we are ready to defend, ready to deter what we are calling the High North. And many thanks, Jonas, for your great hospitality yesterday and today. Let me switch into German. Wir treffen uns heute hier.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're meeting today north of the Arctic Circle while the war in the Middle East is ongoing. The High North, where we are, may be geographically far away from Tehran, but the fighting in Iran has immediate impacts on our security and our energy supply too. We do share important goals of the United States and Israel. Iran must not pose a threat to Israel and other neighbors. Its nuclear program, its ballistic program must end. Iran needs to stop inciting terror at home and in the region and beyond, and support terror. But with every day this war lasts, more questions are coming up, more than can be answered yet. And one thing becomes increasingly clear: we need a convincing plan on how this war can come to an end. Meanwhile, we're witnessing a dangerous escalation. Iran indiscriminately attacks states in the region, among them close partners and allies of our country too, Germany. The Strait of Hormuz is basically closed, and we condemn this in the strongest terms. We have no interest in an endless war, or if the territorial integrity or statehood of Iran was crumbling, or if Iran was no longer economically viable, it would have severe impacts on us as well. So we need a good outlook for a peace order. We have discussed these topics. I was happy that we had the opportunity and that we continue this discussion also. The cooperation on energy policy. Yesterday we set the right tracks, and in the future too we will make sure that we develop a common energy supply strategy within the European Union, together with our Canadian partners and Norway, who are, of course, not a member of the EU. We need joint strategies in terms of energy supply, also common strategies in developing satellite programs and space aviation. These are topics that we are intensively discussing here, and I'm very happy that we had this practical demonstration of this exercise here as well. What the Bundeswehr does here is really remarkable. Also, at this spot, the Bundeswehr is defending Germany, and I would like to reiterate that. And I've heard it from the commanders and from my partners here. The German soldiers are highly appreciated and much respected also for the knowledge and skills they have. So I would like to thank the German soldiers who participate in this exercise. Thank you very much. It's great that you're here, and please come back safely.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister Stora, dear Jonas, and Chancellor, dear Friedrich. This is an incredibly important exercise for Canada. And I think where I'd like to start is to echo comments of my colleagues, is that what we begin with is the strength of our common values. We are like-minded. We hold basic values constantly dear. But we're recognizing at the same time the value of our strength. We're all investing heavily in our defense and security, and we all recognize that we are much stronger together. Stronger together when we cooperate in areas such as space, cooperate in defense, but also cooperate with other like-minded nations. And there's no better illustration than Operation Cold Response. Over 30,000 women and men, 14 nations, working together, learning together, integrating systems, preparing to defend our citizens. So it is incredibly important for Canada to be a participant in this with our special forces. We're learning a lot. I think hopefully we're passing on a few lessons. We'll take this forward. We will protect our own territories. We will protect the High North, the Arctic, and in doing so, we will protect NATO, we'll protect freedom, democracy, and human rights. Just a couple of words about our commitment to defense. A year ago, our new government was first sworn in, and within the first week, we went to our Arctic and made a commitment. We made a commitment to change fundamentally our defense strategy, to be present 365 days a year in land, sea, and air, in a territory that is 40% of our land mass and 75% of our coastline. I would add also a territory that shares a 3,000-kilometer border with the European Union. Part of that commitment comes with major investment. We announced yesterday over $40 billion of investments in the Arctic, in defense and security and economic security. And then that is part of a bigger set of investments consistent with commitments we all made less than a year ago in
The Hague.
in The Hague. I was going to say in The Hague. I wanted to say Hamburg because you were here, Friedrich, but in The Hague. Made commitments there for Canada those commitments translate to $500 billion of additional spending on defense and security over the course of the next decade. C'est à peu près 500 milliards de dollars sur des dépenses sur la défense et la sécurité d'ici 2035. Au fond, c'est une question de partenariat et des questions des valeurs communes que nous partageons. So, fundamental learnings from this exercise, fundamental strength that comes from the partnership that we have. Thank you for hosting us. I look forward to moving forward together. And of course, we all look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
And then we open up for questions. And the first questions come from the Norwegian news agency, Bibiana Dale Pine. So if you please go to the microphone down there. Yes, next to the cameras, please.
Hello, hi. I can't see you anymore, but hopefully you can hear me. I'd like to pick up on something that Mr. Mertz said about the war in Iran. And being here with Russia as the sort of intended enemy, I'm wondering if you could share your thoughts about what the war in Iran and the easing of the oil sanctions against Russia, what will that have to say for the war in Ukraine? What will be the implications? So, thank you.
Well, let me start by saying that we are entering the 5th year of a full-scale aggression from Russia against Ukraine, and Ukraine has had to live with events beyond Ukraine taking attention away from this completely unacceptable situation they are in. So the first thing is that when there is dramatic things happening elsewhere, there is less attention on keeping pressure on Russia, supporting Ukraine's defense. The 3 countries standing here are consistent in supporting Ukraine, even if the focus may be somewhere else. In fact, we have from Norway and Germany, I think will be the major providers of support, and also from Canada to Ukraine's ongoing efforts. And it's our view, and I speak for Norway now, and I think we share that view, that there needs to be more pressure on Russia to stop this unacceptable war. And from my perspective, I think that there should be no pressure on the energy side taken off Russia. It needs to be consistent, and it needs to be felt from the Russian side so that they will come to the negotiation table, accept the ceasefire, and accept a just and durable peace.
Well, I fully agree with what Prime Minister Støre just said. As you all know, we had a video conference with the G7 leaders on Wednesday, and 6 out of 7 were clearly the opinion that we should not release the sanctions against Russia. And we were a little bit surprised that we heard this morning that the American government decided differently. This is definitely not our view. We are sharing the 6 out of 7 that this should be not the case because Russia is benefiting from that. And we are seeing this into the right different direction. We should put more pressure on Russia to bring this terrible war to an end as soon as possible. And that's the reason why we are having a different view on this decision, which was obviously taken in DC last night.
Yes. I'll just reinforce that. Entirely agree. Canada's position is to maintain sanctions on Russia, maintain sanctions, including on the Shadow Fleet, which is moving this oil. You know, there has been very tight cooperation between Russia and Iran at great cost to the people of Ukraine, and a great threat to peace and security in Europe. And this group, under the leadership of the 2 gentlemen to my right, and a broader coalition of the willing, has stood up to that. In providing the framework for security guarantees, stood up to that in terms of providing support and training and materiel to Ukraine. All of us have contributed considerably to the defense of Ukraine, stood up to it in terms of sanctions, which we stand by, and will continue to do so.
The next question is from Catherine Tunney, CBC.
On va faire un petit changement. Ce sera Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada. Monsieur Carney, d'abord, si vous pouviez répéter en français ce que vous venez de dire sur la position du Canada par rapport à la levée des sanctions américaines contre le pétrole russe. Et ensuite, si on pouvait vous entendre, can you answer the question? Will it be any G7 meeting discussing the American decision? And is any one of you has the intention to talk to Donald Trump about his decision, trying to maybe convince him to back up on it?
OK, je vais commencer. En ce qui concerne les sanctions canadiennes contre la Russie, on va les garder. C'est clair, c'est simple. Et la situation demeure la même. C'est la faute de la Russie, cette guerre horrible en Ukraine, et c'est la position du Canada de soutenir l'Ukraine tout le temps. C'est pas le moment d'enlever la pression sur la Russie, surtout parce que la Russie et l'Iran sont des grands alliés. OK? Alors, au fond, j'espère que ça suffit. In terms of a G7 meeting, I'm sure there will be additional G7 meetings. The convening of those meetings is the responsibility of the presidency. We all have direct lines into the president, and we'll use them. There is value in having broader G7 discussions. I'll make a final point with the countries of the GCC, who have shown enormous restraint and heroism, I might add, in terms of their response to the ceaseless attacks by Iran on them, particularly on civilians and civilian infrastructure.
So, Chancellor, will you ask a meeting to President Macron about the American decision?
Well, we will have the opportunity to speak with each other over the weekend, and we will check what we can do. And I'm totally agreeing with what Marcani said about the sanctions, and this is our view, and this is shared by most of the G7 members, and we will figure out what we can do to keep them ongoing and to increase them instead of releasing them.
The next questions come from Mr. Rinke, Reuters.
I have a question to Prime Minister Carney. You just said that we are stronger together if we work together. So my question would be about submarines. Why does Canada not buy the offer Germany and Norway have made? Why are you still thinking about why are you still thinking about a South Korean offer? And a question to the Chancellor and Mr. Störe. What could you actually offer on addition of the offer which was made by the company to Canada to make it more appealing to accept it?
Well, let me answer this in a way that doesn't put pressure on my two colleagues, which is that all of our governments are making enormous additional investments in defense and security, rightly so. But all of us are doing so in a way that is responsible with taxpayer dollars, that look to ensure that those investments have the maximum effect in terms of providing defense and security to our citizens, and also build partnerships that have broader industrial and economic benefits for all of us together. What does that mean from a process perspective? Is you run a very clear, consistent, transparent, open, fair process. And the reason I'm not going to answer your question is we're towards the final stages of that. We're at the final stages of that, and we're blessed by having options, very much including the German-Norwegian option. Thank you.
Well, let me say that the offer from Norway and Germany was handed to Canada a few days ago, and I have every confidence that the Canadians will make a thorough evaluation of that offer. So I'll let the technical details lie. Just want to say that from our experience, investing together in these kind of very comprehensive capacities is more about than the capacities. It is also building industrial partnership and strategic and security policy partnership. So when Norway and Germany are integrating on submarines and on tanks, as we have seen here, it means also a very strong political integration between mature and trusted allies. So we get much closer in the way we share outlook on security environment, on security threats, and it's also kind of a cultural dimension of bringing us together, which provides Norway net security by those kind of common projects. So I think that's the whole idea. These are major investments, as Prime Minister Carney says. We are making decisions on spending a lot of money on this, which means that we can spend less money on other important issues in our societies. And in addition to investing in these capacities, you know, when we do it together, we get an extra political dimension, which is very important for Norwegian security.
Well, I fully agree with what my colleagues said. This is covering the entire picture of, the one hand, spending money for the right equipment, on the other hand, to standardize, to bring more standards into NATO, and to scale up the numbers. So this is, in my view, extremely important. And we're talking about, and as Mark Carney said, we are in the final stage of our talks, and I'm very much hoping that we can convince the Canadian partners to do that, what we want to see them to do.
The next question comes from TV2, Simen Grimstad Øksnes.
Hello. Norwegian authorities repeatedly emphasize that the United States is Norway's most important ally. Do the German Chancellor and the Canadian Prime Minister still believe that the US can be trusted when it comes to security in the north?
Yes.
Yes. Do you want me to elaborate on that? We have our defense of the North is integrated. I'll give an example through NORAD, which is, since for my entire lifetime, has been the integrated listening post air defense system in the Canadian North and High Arctic, fundamentally integrated with the United States. So we have that level of trust for that system. But I will say at the same time, and this was a huge element of what we announced yesterday, is that we are, as Canada, are taking control and responsibility for defense of our Arctic, more control and responsibility for defense of our Arctic. We will do that by very large investments, some of which we announced yesterday, and we will do that in partnership with our closest allies, very much including Norway and Germany, and if I may broaden Norway to include the Nordic countries and the Baltic countries to some degree, because there's an integration of the Nordic-Baltic 8 through NATO. So we're broadening out those partnerships. That makes us stronger, as does taking more of the responsibility ourselves. Thank you.
Can I add one dimension to this? And I think one reason why we can say that we trust is that being present in cooperation with the United States in the North is also homeland security for the United States. Right. This is about protecting Norway, but by protecting Norway, keeping low tensions, avoiding conflict here, it is net positive for the security of the United States. We believe that is self-interest. So yes.
But when U.S. eases the sanctions on Russia, doesn't that create a different picture?
We have made it clear that we disagree with that decision, and disagreements appear among countries. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next question is from Valérie Ganache, Radio-Canada.
Sorry, we did a little switch. It's Catherine Tunney from CBC. My question is for all three of you. As you know, Trump has ordered a 301 investigation into major economies, including your own, alleging unfair labor practices. My question is, do you think that is valid? And Prime Minister Carney, if you'll allow me to double barrel a question in the rain, but many Canadians are probably looking at that latest job report with some worry, some 84,000 jobs lost, the worst in years. What does that say about your handle of things?
Okay, well, maybe I'll start, so I'll get rid of the both elements of it. Look, if you look at the performance of the labor market over the course of the last 6 months, we've created over 80,000 jobs net over the last 6 months. The United States has created 6,000 jobs. Okay, the United States, 11 times the size of our economy. Wages are growing at 4.2%, fastest wage growth in years. Unemployment, 6.7%. It's lower than the peak the level when I came into office a year ago. There's no question, though, because it goes to the first part of your question, now I'll move to that, which is that given the scale of the trade actions, the uncertainty that is associated as well as with the trade actions by the United States, that is causing big adjustments in the Canadian economy. And that's why we're making major investments across a whole range of areas. I won't go through them all. I think you're probably familiar with them. In terms of the U.S. 301 actions announced today against 60 countries, I guess the first thing I'd say is I welcome the fact that the United States cares about labor practices in other countries. The allegation is not labor practices in our countries. It's imports from countries who would be using forced labor or slave labor. Canada has a comprehensive legal framework around that, as is the case to my right, and we take it very seriously, and we stand by our adherence to Canadian law. Yes, there are provisions in USMCA related to labor standards, but there are stronger provisions in Canadian law against forced labor, and we expect those to be followed. And when they're not, they are prosecuted. Thank you.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. The last question today is Mrs. Sievert from Table Media.
Thank you. Eine Frage an den Bundeskanzler. Sie haben den
I have a question to the Federal Chancellor. You mentioned Iran. Would you support the Europeans or the Germans to establish a direct contact with the Iranians so that the Strait of Hormuz can be reopened?
You have emphasized that you are showing here that the North is able to defend itself. When looking at this, would you say that the conflict looking at Greenland is completely settled with the U.S. as of now?
Well, wir unternehmen alle Anstrengungen.
Well, we make every effort to bring the war in Iran to an end. We do everything we can diplomatically. We use all diplomatic channels, and we hope that we will find ways to end this war as soon as possible, because it doesn't serve anybody and it harms many economically. It also harms us. And the second part of the question, we are working closely together. We try to find ways for us to cooperate even more closely. We show it with our presence here today, and this is the right way forward that we have embarked on together, and will continue to do so in the coming years. Yeah.
Of the Kingdom of Denmark, and it's up to the people in Greenland and in Denmark to trace the future for the people in Greenland. And any attempt to say that a country can take land from another country is unacceptable. It's not acceptable to international law, and especially something which should be unheard of among allies.
And I will just fully associate myself with that. I've said it in the past, and I just add this because it goes to what's happening here, is that we are fully prepared individually and collectively to defend the Arctic and the High North. What this operation is about, this training exercise, is to further build those capabilities against Russia, against any external threat. And of course, that very much includes Denmark as one of the 14 countries that's participating. It's also the case with Arctic Sentry within NATO and other frameworks. So we will deal with the security threats as partners, not as individuals. Thank you.
Okay.
And on that note, we need to wrap up this press conference. Thank you so much.
Very good.